Welcome back. We are working on the Dakota again with the 5.7 swap and TR6060. So engine and trans are still sitting exactly where they were. I did look a little bit where the starter's going to hit, and we'll look at that a little more. Hooker headers are here, little shorties. We're going to play with them in a second. The only other thing I've done, which I didn't worry about recording, is I took seat out and I swapped clutch pedal in. And I've got the master cylinder coming, I've got the roll pin style to 4AN, and I've got the 4AN to the TR6060 fitting. So once I get all that stuff in, then I can measure a line and have that made. And then the clutch hopefully is taken care of. Someone commented that someone has done an LS with an AR5, which uses, I believe, still like T56 stuff, and the clutch master worked with that slave, so hopefully it does the same here. If not, we'll figure it out. But let's get this open and see what they're gonna look like. Well, they're out. They technically can be made to fit. They would fit as is heading backwards. They would fit as is heading backwards, not a problem. When I was looking at this on the internet, I was checking the bolt pattern and I was like, oh, you can just flip them around. And you can't. You can, but you can't. So this guy, I've got the engine picked up slightly. I'll have to pick the engine up to get the passenger header in, or manifold, whatever you want to call this, log. Keep in mind the rest of this stuff over here. This will get cut off and probably used right here to head up to the turbo, and the other one will cross over and head up to the turbo. But the exhaust bolt pattern, I was incorrect. So, problem. I've not absolutely decided how I'm going to solve it, because I can get 2 exhaust bolts in to hold the log. I can cut all this crap apart, which would suck, and weld it back together, or I can put the left head on the right side and the right head on the left side, and then that changes the orientation of the exhaust bolt pattern, and then I don't have to modify any headers, and I've got to take the heads off anyway. I believe the only problem I'm going to have is I think there's an EGR port on one of them. Let's see, that one's plugged and the other one's probably drilled, but we're not going to use that crap anyway. Let's see. Yeah, it's not machined out anyway, because I guess it doesn't have EGR at all. It's just plugged off. Yeah. Well, so it looks like that's a non-issue. The other thing is the back of this head isn't drilled and tapped to receive accessories like this one is, probably. I'm not sure what all bolts catch. And that guy right there, make sure it has that boss. It doesn't really touch any of those except for this. That's just floating. I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. So we got a problem, but I think we've also got a solution. Does it have that boss? Oh yeah, it has that boss up there, and it's drilled and maybe tapped. Yeah, it's right there. That guy is that guy. I think that'll work. So I think that's the plan. These were $300. Hooker, black art, whatever, cheap. So I'd rather swap the heads, cut those off. The heads have to come off anyway. I'll have to do more looking when I get the cylinder heads off and compare them and make sure coolant passages and ports and things aren't. If they're the same, no different pattern, then I don't see a problem with that. But it sounds like the easiest solution for now. I don't want to cut up those manifolds. I don't want to do all that crap to change the flanges. I will mock it up real quick and see what the headers or the manifolds look like if you were going to run them without facing them forward. So I'll flip those around and we'll look at it. Here you go on the passenger side. Plenty of room. Right down your hole here, not a problem. Driver's side, even more room. Not a problem. With these log manifolds, this is easy. Plenty of room. Not a problem. So, I think I'll leave the exhaust side alone as of right now. No need for me to mess around trying to mock it up as is. Whenever I do the cam, I'll flop the heads around, make sure that's going to work. So I'll do the cam, I've got a Hellcat oil pump, I've got everything else for it to put it back together. So then, once it's in, it should be the last time it goes in. I got the pilot bearing on the way, I've got some other crap for it. That should be the last time it goes back in, hopefully. I went to fit the starter, I figured out where that needs to go, about to Sharpie it up. We're gonna Sharpie this guy up too. This oil cooler is gonna go, but even if it does, the filter is still gonna get into this lower piece right here. Just a little bit. There you go. Maybe not. Yeah, just enough. So we'll clearance that guy. I'll go grab the starter and we'll look at it real quick. Damn, I guess I need to mock up. I can mock the exhaust up a little more, because ultimately I wanted to know how close I could get, how much further I can get the engine down, so I can get the engine at the angle I want it to be at. So let me look at that one more time. Well, it's not great. This side, wonderful. Where it comes out here, also great. That can come down, sneak right here in front of the radiator between the damper, as low as possible, sweep up into turbo. That I can make into turbo, and then there's plenty of room. Well, plenty. There's enough room to get a downpipe right through there. I don't know about the biggest downpipe, but at least a 3-inch, maybe a 3.5. Problem is it's almost sitting all the way down in the notches, but it's not. It's sitting on the control arm right here. Backside, fine, good, clear. Downpipe, plenty of room. Right here. And a couple ways to fix this. I could dent the hell out of that header. I don't want to do that, because even if I do, it's still going to be really, really close all the time, and it is going to cook that bushing. I could do a tiny body lift, and then I could pick everything up a bit, but I don't want to do that. That's silly. We want to get the weight down. Also, I can't bring the engine up. It's up against the brake booster right now. So I really want to drop it. And there's nothing stopping me on the driver's side. We're free and clear. We're good. Got room everywhere else. It's just this control arm. So what I think I'm going to do is take the adjustment bolts loose and see how far over I can slide it. I've made control arms before. It's not the end of the world. I've considered going to a Heim or a different bushing. I can make it smaller. I've also probably look at some suspension analyzer stuff. I've considered making tubular control arms for my own. I could shorten the upper control arm and bring that pivot point out. I'm sure that would make a lot of, that could do a lot of things. Actually, I might even be able to, this is a straight bar right here, straight across that goes through, and I bet I could find one that's W-shaped. You know, it's got a jog in it which could push it out, but the control arm being longer, or being the same length, it would just camber out. not awesome. So you could do that and then shorten the control arm, and you can get your camber right. But the camber gain it's going to have during bump is going to change by, I don't really know that much. I have to look into it. So I could go to a smaller bushing, I could go a little shorter control arm, I could go to a hemi, but I think ultimately I'm going to move the control arm out of the way and make that work and worry about it later. Once I get the bolts loose and I can see, because if I have enough wiggle room I can just get by. It's on the brake booster, it's 3 degrees down, which is right, but it's 3 degrees down and everything's up against the body. So I either move the body up, or I move the engine and trans down, or I live with it raked like this, and I don't want to do that. That really irks me. To me, always engine as far back and as far down as possible. I know that drag car stuff is different, but this is not that. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to loosen the bolts, slide the control arm out, hopefully there's some slot, and we'll deal with it later. So I think we'll look at the starter real quick. Now that the chair picker can be let back down. Alright, starter hole, cross member. Let's see if I can get you anywhere where you can see anything. Maybe, maybe not. Alright, I'm just going to get this in the hole. I can get it up fairly easily, and I can get it in place. But we are missing this much for it to pivot down, and that's where it needs that notch. So as I drop the engine, that's also going to make that worse. Not that concerned about it. It'll still be alright. I don't think we're going to lose that much structure. I'm sure we're going to lose some. Oh, lots of little things add up. And I've got the transmission as high as I could get it, so I can't imagine if I left it hanging way down just how hard that would be into that cross member. So I think we'll notch the crap out of it and just hope it's alright, just like we're going to do with that control arm. Maybe there's some free suspension software so I can play with the numbers and see what it looks like. I could mock it up in SolidWorks and play a little bit. I don't know that more camber gain in bump is the end of the world. It, as a truck, its factory suspension is made to do one job. Maybe a little more camber gain would be good, and then a shorter control arm would be good for us. I know with the wheels I have on it, the wheels off the Challenger, it is wide. It has a lot of poke, so when I put the RT flares on it, it's going to be just right, but it's going to be pretty flush. So I can't go out with everything unless I want to make that problem even worse. So it really needs to stay where it is. Control arm can get shorter. I could shorten both control arms, but that doesn't solve that problem. No. So we'll see. Maybe I make some control arms with a hemi to clear it. Maybe smaller bushing. Maybe shorter control arm with it scooted out. I've got to do some studying. And control arm out. No problems. We got room for days. This thing was already maxed out on its slot. It was all the way out. However, there is more room. It's flat for another maybe 7 3/4, 7/8 of an inch here. So I could slot this some more and bring it on out some more, which will mess up our caster. Or it'll mess up our camber, it'll mess up everything, but it'll maybe get it enough out of the way. But at least, well, at least nothing. It's just one more problem to figure out. But I will continue on as if this doesn't exist, because now that I can see this, I can get a heim in this space. I can get a smaller bushing in this space. Now that I've got this guy out, you see this where it's swelled up right here? Well, inside of it isn't as bad. The bushing isn't actually that big. It's a little smaller. It swells up and in the cup because of how this is assembled. But if we want polyurethane or something else, we don't have to have it that big. So we could go where it stays thinner and it probably wouldn't hit. Not in this factory control arm, it would have to be a tubular control arm. And at that point I could, tubular control arm, I could slot it just a little bit and shove the control arm out, which is going to mess with our camber. And right now I don't have any elliptical bolts for adjusting the lower control arm. I could probably get a kit for that and push the bottom out, which is going to have the tires sticking out. Got the flares on. I think the tires were about right here. So, I mean, if it's out to here a little bit, the flares will cover it. That's just a wheel. That's just the extra wheels I had off the Challenger. It's not like I have to run these. It's not actually the right bolt pattern. It's really close. 5x114.3 is 5x114.3 is 5x4.5. Ford pattern, any import pattern basically, and Dodge is 5x115, so it's 0.7 millimeters, which equals 13 thousandths per stud that it's off. People have done it. I think it's fine, but in the end, if I got to get a different wheel, it's fine. I've got these giant brakes, but with those wheels I still had plenty of room, so I could just get a wheel that shoves it in and not be a problem, and that would widen the track width of the truck, at least suspension wise, move everything out just a tick. So anyway, we'll table this. We won't worry about that. We'll slot that guy, drop the engine where it needs to go, get the transmission mount made, and then I'll figure out how to get this control arm back in there somehow, some way. Make it smaller and stronger all at the same time somehow. But that's your update for today. So hopefully this weekend it doesn't rain, I can get back to it. I can get it slotted, get everything clearanced, get the starter so it can go in, transmission cross member, and then once everything can sit and all the mounts are done, then I can pull it back out and get ready to do the cam, swap sides of the heads so I can face those forward. I might have the heads gone through, maybe. Might just razor blade it. Yeah, that's it for now. Plan changes every day. So thank you for watching.